And I think we are now recording for our first podcast of 2022.
Wow.
I know we had a bit of a hiatus in December, but we're back with a vengeance, and we have Austin with us. Hi, Austin.
Oh, yeah.
You've somehow managed to dodge my press ganging for a while to get onto one of these, haven't you? But
Yeah,
we got you eventually. So, obviously, one of the things that we deal with a lot at TSF is people coming to us with ideas. And I know, Austin, you've just, with a little plug for you, published a blog recently about how startups approach us and how they turn almost a vision. Because I think you and the rest of the TSF team know a lot of the people who approach us often aren't techies, which I know can be intimidating for a lot of people, and probably another future episode of From the Factory Floor. But it's just an idea. So what was it that really prompted you to sort of really try and delve into how people turn their ideas into realities?
I think a lot of people have ideas and then they never do anything about it, first of all. They think, well, that's a nice thing, and then they put it on the back burner. They don't do anything at all with it. And that's probably because the idea is quite fluffy. They've got something there and it's very raw, it's very underdeveloped, and they're just not sure how they would go about doing that. And then as well, there's maybe a fear of failure as well, that they don't want to try to do a little bit more with it. So I thought I just wanted to give people little bit of a structure, some things to think about that would help them to solidify those ideas, and then hopefully motivate them to go and do something about it.
Yeah, because I know we just the other day had a chat about sort of just our own internal idea. And I mean, is it really, so when you see these ideas, what was really the key thing for you that I think would help some founders just almost like you say, solidify the idea or almost refine it to the extent where they can have the confidence in it?
Yeah, I think it all really revolves around a problem that somebody wants to solve. There's an issue with something, and we all come across things like that with processes and tools that we use in everyday life and at work as well. We find that there's things that don't quite work for us. We can talk to other people and find that it's an issue for other people as well, and that they'd like to have a solution to that. And I think that if you can latch onto a problem and then find out if people are going to or are willing to spend some money on solving that problem, then you've got something there that could turn into a very viable business.
Yeah, I think that idea of getting out of the building. I know a lot of books, a lot of guides to refine your ideas is actually go and talk to people, because I think the key thing you said there, there's almost two pieces, was the idea of this: is it actually a problem for other people, not just yourself? Because we all experience problems every day, and there's hundreds of ways to try and change that. So it's almost, is there a problem? And then how does your solution fix it? So I guess it's that idea of almost having that sort of problem solution fit in place to really give yourself the impetus and idea of success, really, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And like I say, it's really important to get out of the building, to try to talk to other people. I think there's less of that. People are less willing to do that now. They think they can do a lot of things online. But it's really important, because then you can gauge what people's reactions are when they talk about the problem. You can see if they're interested, see if they're, more importantly, if they're willing to spend some money on it. Because if it's a problem that's a minor thing that people aren't really worried about spending any money on, then you haven't really got anything that's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and that's always the second bit. And I think, I know when we do our sessions with our founders to help them refine their ideas, is problem, solution, market. Because like I say, you could have, it could be a problem, but if no one's willing to pay to fix it, 'cause it's not a big enough problem, it's a lovely charity idea you've got there.
Absolutely.
But I guess let's delve slightly more into the problem, and sort of, have you got any examples of where businesses or ideas that you've seen where they've had this idea of a problem and how they've refined that and actually seen this is a problem worth solving? Because I know, looking at some of our startups that we've worked with, we use the example like My Online Coach, where there was a real almost a problem that you wouldn't have realised. Of there's so many coaches and they're so active, and obviously a founder like Leslie come through, where their idea is to actually just help them reach out. That now a lot of coaches probably wouldn't have known that they had had a problem around outreach. I suppose that's the interesting thing about problems, isn't it? Some of them are really smack you in the face, and some of them are, well, did you know that this is a problem? And then that's when you realise that it is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've seen a lot of that, haven't we, recently in the last maybe 5 to 10 years of marketplaces that connect individuals together. Certainly, with my education background, there's a lot of that with tutors and connecting tutors
Mm.
and clients. There's always a problem of finding very good people to do or to provide a service as well. So I think that's one huge problem that we've seen a lot of movement in solving it recently.
Yeah, I think there's been a real development recently, at least that I've seen, with sort of the ideas where it is this, whether it's Airbnb's kind of prompted it or Uber, this idea of having, outside of the legalities with Uber anyway, you've, you're just connecting a supply and a demand rather than necessarily being the supplier yourself. I think that marketplace idea is really growing, and how they develop in the future gives them a lot of scope.
Mm.
And it's now if you now what would you do in or from what you've seen when what we've done with our startups where we've kind of guided them a little bit more, like how do you try and keep people on track and almost convince them that their problem is a real problem and that it's something that people will see value out of?
I think really it's having a clear idea of what you want to achieve, what you want to do, what the not necessarily the ultimate end goal, but a significant way to what you want to do. Because if you've got that vision of where you want to go, where you want to take the business, why you want to solve this problem, then that will help you to stay on track and not to deviate. There's lots of things when you start delving into a business and getting into the business model itself. There's lots of ways you can take it. And particularly in the startup world, it's very can be tempting to pivot when you see something that you think may be a potential little problem. Instead of just thinking, okay, I'm going to stick with what my ultimate goal is and trying to achieve that without deviating.
Yeah, I think that's something really interesting you said there, and it kind of segues onto the sort of next piece nicely, which is remembering what you're doing it for, what you're doing. And I guess to know what you're doing, you have to know who you're doing it for.
Mm.
And having that idea of, I know what it's a phrase I use, you can only solve the problem for 80% of people. You can't solve it for everyone. So, how would you, if someone came to advice around doing this, how would you help them almost identify what their ideal user actually is? That what is that 80% of people?
Yeah, so I think you've got to try and get as specific as possible. So, what I like to do, I like to try to visualize somebody, think of, okay, this is the person. I might even give them a name. I'm going to try to market to this person, and these are the things that this person is interested in. So I try to list them. They're interested in X, Y, and Z. They're a particular age range, where they are in life. Are they a young parent? Are they older? Are they where exactly are they on that life journey? And try and get as specific as possible what their likes are, what their dislikes are. And if you can really craft that customer profile, that'll really help you to target what everything really that you're going to do with your business.
Yeah, because we do it in our scoping sessions, and even down to how these people tend to interact with technology is a huge thing. Because 1,000,001 people will ask for an app these days, and a lot of the times an app might be the best way. Like the idea we discussed the other day is very, very mobile focused, but there's just some things you don't really do on the move. And actually, the best way that, or the way that your ideal sort of user is going to look at the system is through a desktop. So why invest in Android and Apple technologies, or something like React, where you can obviously try and push to both? I think if you've not got that idea of an ideal user, I don't think you can actually start to craft your goal. And you can know what the problem is, but you have to have a really crystal idea. And that idea of user personas is something that a lot of startups use to say, here's Betty, she's a insert age here, this is her habits, this is how she does things at the moment, and knowing how you're going to improve it for them. And then going back to what we said before, go and speak to Betty. So, go and get out the building and talk to them and actually say, do you realise that this is a problem? Do you realise that this is something that could be changed? And asking, it's why in the Jake Knapp design sprints, the last day is all about testing and speaking to people, because throughout the process, you look at different ways that this could be solved before I think it's day 2 when you actually select a potential solution. But it's all about testing things, really, isn't it? Because if you want to solve a problem, you have to test.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really nice point as well about getting out and trying to talk to these people, because it's one thing to craft one of these customer personas, but you're probably going to be wrong in quite a lot of areas. You're going to be making a lot of assumptions. So you want to meet as many people that you're going to be likely to target as possible to just try to really tweak that. And you'll probably end up having several sub-customer personas as well, based on differences that comes out of those talking points with people. And I know when I've done that before, when I've gone on I don't know if people are aware of the startup weekend competition where you can get together with other people and try to craft a startup idea over a weekend. And you literally just go out on the street and you try to talk to people about your idea and the problem, and something like that is fantastic.
Yeah, and if people are looking for tools or ways of trying to do this, there's a great tool. I think it's Eric Osterwalder came up with the value proposition canvas.
Yeah.
And it's really trying to map who you can have your personas. You can potentially have different personas because there might be different people who are going to use this, but it's always going to be one value proposition. You want one product at the end of the day, which I guess simplifying your solution is always
Mm.
something that's really important as well. And what's the most simple way that's going to help both, and then eventually you can scale that and change that and pivot. But looking at sort of the pains and gains that people go through, looking at what jobs they do, looking at then trying to map that onto what your value proposition does, what's your service, gain creators, pain relievers, and then eventually you can put that into a business model canvas and kind of stretch that even more to see how it fits within the market, which is really it's a great tool for going from problem, solution, market. And sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is, and that's a really good point actually, because that can really help somebody to really stay away from the temptation to say, "Well, my product, everybody would use it, everybody would find some benefit from it," and that's just not true. Most people, for a lot of products, if not all products, will not be interested in it. And you wanted to find, okay, what's my core section of people that would, and by focusing on all that, that can really help you to do that instead of thinking it's just going to be mass market.
Yeah, just saying, it works it's for everyone. It's really not helpful
Exactly.
because I don't know a single product that's for everyone. I don't know, whether I'll even use something like Spotify. I love Spotify. I listen to all music or other music streaming services are available. I know Ian will never stream a piece of music in his life. He loves having the CD.
Yeah.
So, something that can even have universal appeal isn't necessarily going to be used by everyone. So you want to focus on your ideal user persona to try solve the problem for them. And I think the key thing, like you said, is make sure it's something that they're willing to pay for.
Absolutely, yes, that's vital.
Because if you don't do that, you're probably going to be in a position where you've got a great idea, and it's why I know a lot of times when we do our user testing, we always try and make sure that there's some idea of billing in it, because a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I'd pay for that." We've seen it in countless times when we've done things, and then As soon as it actually comes to putting the hand in the pocket of a user, there's always that moment where they go, am I going to get value? And that's where having your tools like your persona, your value proposition canvas, your business model canvas should really help you be in a state where you know that they will, and that they see enough value and you've either solved enough pains or created enough gains. That's what they're really going to do.
Absolutely, yes. You need to get to that point of somebody putting their hand in their pocket as soon as possible. Because, like you say, unless they do that, all the good intentions in the world don't, count for anything, do they?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say. I mean, obviously, chime in as well, Austin. I think those are the two most common problems that we see when we deal with startups and we do our scoping sessions and really help them and guide them. Is that they've either not quite nailed down who their key user or users in a marketplace, because you've got a supply and a demand side,
Yeah.
are, and exactly what their value proposition is, exactly what it is they're solving, because they're either too generic. I think, would you say those are the two most common problems you see as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, people try to be a little bit too generic, very, very broad with those things, and they're not focused down on the specifics. So that's really what they need to do.
Yeah, I think it's again probably something for a future podcast more we can delve into. But I think the idea that I think people probably wait too long. Once you've eventually done all this, you've decided what your vision is, and you get to that reality. You don't need everything there day one. Get it out there, see what people are saying about it, and then you can start to think about next thing. Because it's the great thing about technology, where you are far more of an expert than I. You can do anything, but you can do anything, but you don't want to just do something. You,
Yeah, absolutely. And often you'll think, okay, my ideal user will want to do this and whatever. And often you're completely wrong. They'll want to do something else. So, like you say, being able to get something there immediately is really good, even if it's just a landing page, like in the good old fashioned lean startup methodology. Just get something there, see if people will be interested in it.
yeah, I think one of the best piece of advice I can give to any potential founder is, outside of looking at your persona, looking at your value proposition canvas, business model canvas, is just that. I think it's one of the most important things that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, yeah, and especially in the early stages as well. Although it's slightly deviating, but you can go into almost like you don't have to build all the tech right at the very beginning. You can have some manual steps as well, just to see if something will work and that you can later automate.
Exactly. I think it's one of the things that we try and encourage our founders to do, and the idea of minimum and viable.
Mm.
As there is always going to be a seesaw in that some things you can do manually, some things you probably need to be automated. You don't want to be going knocking on everyone's doors at the end of the month to give them an invoice. You might want to have automation, but really focus on what's the minimum thing you can do, because it reduces your risk. And any founders or investors that are going to look at it are then going to go, you've either proved it, you've got 100 people on a waiting list. I think Monzo was probably the best way of showing that. Their queue system was, I think it was the first time I've ever seen someone really act in that way, to try and actually create hype, and people are waiting to try and get onto this thing, and it gave them the ability to scale and know where they had to scale to. So there's a lot of different ways of users approaching it, and obviously we've got a couple of events coming up. So if anyone listening to this does have any questions or wants to try and talk to any of us about sort of the process or any advice, or you've got an idea and want to try and really validate it, or you want to actually turn this into a reality, obviously I think it's on the 23rd and the 2nd of March, 23rd of Feb and the 2nd of March. So I'll say everyone feel to turn up. But I think just to wrap up, Austin, because I know we're coming towards that time now. If there was one piece of advice or one key thing that you'd want every founder who talks to us to do beforehand, what would that be?
I think it would be really, don't focus so much on the actual problem, or rather on the solution that you think you have. but focus more on the problem and about why you want to solve this problem as well, really. I'm a big fan of the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If anybody's not watched his TED Talk, it's a fantastic one to watch, because we automatically think about what a business, what a company is going to do, as opposed to why it's going to do it. And there's a great example. I like the shoe company Tom's, where okay, they're a shoe company. There's loads of shoe companies in the world, but they're driven by wanting to provide. Do charity work and to provide, to have business as a model to then help disadvantaged people. And they donate one pair of shoes for every pair of shoes that somebody buys. So if you're really crystal clear on what you want to do and why you want to do it, everything else will just follow from that, really.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice. I mean, I know Ian always says, money's always the applause when it comes to these things. It's not the reason for doing it. So I'd really have a think about your motivation for wanting to do a startup. And I'd echo exactly what you said, is don't focus on the solution. There's going to be a million different ways to solve your problem, but just make sure that your problem is worth solving and make sure that people want that problem solved and realise the value in that problem being solved. So it really is get out of the building and go and talk to people. And if any founders who've done that, and we've had a lot of them have done that, and they've often been the ones that we've worked with, once they've come into it, they've got such a strong case in terms of getting investment, for generating excitement around their product. Because say I've spoken to 10 people today about this, and here's all the feedback. And there's so many tools you can do that with, like finding your ideal use, like we said, the business model canvas. Google Forms is a great way of just SurveyMonkey. So many ways of trying to reach out to people, if even without getting out the building, but just talk to people. That's always
absolutely, yeah, and that'll form a nice story as well. Like say when you're talking to potential investors or just other people, and you're trying to get them excited about your business, and it's those stories that excite people, isn't it? People still do business with people. And they want to see that humanized, and they want to see that human face to it. And so the more you can do to that, the better.
Yeah. It might be a tech business, but it's people who are going to use it.
Absolutely.
That's the soundbite for this one, fella. Well, thanks very much, Austin, for coming on again. And I'm sure we'll be speaking to you very soon. And thanks you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.